Hello everybody and welcome to my first HTML CSS tutorial. My name is John and basically we are going to be learning HTML, CSS, in HTML5 and CSS. Now granted, I'll probably be sticking mainly with HTML5 and CSS, and that's a version of HTML. HTML and CSS are the names for the languages. HTML5 is the version. It just happens to be the newest one. And CSS3 is a version of CSS. It just happens to be the newest version. And there's not a whole lot of difference between them. This website was made in HTML5, and there's a lot of things that this website has and does that and looks that XHTML can't do, and CSS itself. So we're going to be going over that. And a couple of things. One, you're not going to be able to learn HTML or CSS in one video in 5 minutes. It's not going to work. This series will probably be close to 40 to 50 videos long. Granted, they're only going to be about 5 minutes long per video. But even then, you'll be proficient at making a basic, simple website. And I'll try to show you as much, but you probably have to refer back to it. If you're watching this on YouTube, you can go down to the description, and if it's there, it means that the website's launched. But there should be a link to my website. However, it's not up yet, so the link won't be there right away. But when it is, you can go to the website, and you'll find a written tutorial on the website that accompanies the video. The videos are standalone; they can be watched by themselves. However, the written tutorials basically just give you more insight and are easier to refer back to and everything. This is a website that I've created as an example. If you go to headwear.com, you're not going to see this. That's not my domain name. That's somebody else's. I didn't realize it at the time I was making this website, but really I wasn't making this. My website will look a lot like this, but this is a completely different file. Basically, it's just a primitive version of my website. But you'll find on the tutorials, you'll find audio players that'll play the paragraphs for you, so you can listen and look at the examples work on your website, whatever. You don't have to read along. I'm trying to make it as easy as possible. Let's see what else. Oh yeah, we're using HTML5, so there are workarounds. HTML5 isn't integrated into older browsers, and most of it is integrated into the newer versions of most browsers, but it's not. There are parts of it. It takes a while to put a new version of a language into a browser to where it's readable. It could take a couple of years. HTML5, I believe, it started in 2011. So at some point, I think in December or November. However, it's 2013 right now, and it's been a couple of years, and so most of it is integrated into the browsers. However, there are certain things that still aren't, and so I'll show you workarounds. I'll show you how to do that. We're going to get to do things like, for instance, if you look at this, I'm using a touchpad. This is kind of hard. There we go. Okay. Oh no, don't want to close it. There we go. You see how the content kind of like shrinks down? That's called Flexbox, and that's an HTML5 thing that it does require a little extra to work in all browsers, basically. And also, you can do things like you can have curved corners and things like that, like these right here. That's HTML5. That's not, and also opacity, or no, I'm sorry, gradients. I mean, you can do opacity too, but gradients. This was done in CSS3. This isn't an image that I created in another program. This whole website was done styled using CSS3 other than this banner. I made this in Inkscape, and you'll find an Inkscape tutorial, a couple of them on my website also, as soon as it's up. And basically, my website, the whole purpose for it is to get you ready to do website development, graphic design, and it gives you the tools you need, freeware. Inkscape is great. It's like Adobe Illustrator, only it's free, and you can do almost anything. Granted, it's probably not as easy as Adobe Illustrator, but it has a steep learning curve. But that's what the tutorials are for. It's to show you how to do things, just like these tutorials. So in this tutorials we're going to be learning HTML5 and CSS3. Now HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language, right here. And this is a definition. I'm not going to read this off to you, but I wanted to show you that. All this is your hypertext. It's your content. It's your information and everything. CSS basically styles your website. So these things like these line breaks, the borders, and the size of your text and all that stuff, even your links. Granted, these are normal links, but you can change with CSS. You can change the color. You can take away the underline. You can make them change colors when you hover over them. I mean, there's really no limit as far as the newer versions of CSS, CSS3. That I mean, you can do quite a bit using that without JavaScript, and I think that's part of what they're trying to do. They're trying to take JavaScript out of the equation. Um, so we're going to go over that. Also, markup language, hypertext markup language. And markup language is basically like a set of instructions that you're going to give your browser. And this is where your tags come in. As you can see here, use the markup language as a hypertext. And these are hyperlinks. And hyperlinks pretty much make up the World Wide Web. Without a hyperlink, I mean, they link from website to website to website to website, within your website, outside your website. And that is the World Wide Web. It's just a connection of information that you have access to. So that's basically what we're going to be doing. Now, the thing is, HTML and CSS, they're a language. I mean, granted, it's not as hard as learning French, but you are still going to have to learn a new language. You can't just type in, I want this to be purple, and expect it to be purple. You have to learn how to make it purple. You have to, and that's what we're going to learn. And if you're going to follow along with me, be it on my website or on YouTube videos, you're going to want to use Notepad++. And this is what I'm using, and that's why you probably want to follow along. Things like this. If you're using regular Notepad, all this is going to be black. And black text is great, I guess, but I'm a pretty experienced HTML or website developer, and I don't like black text. I like to know where things are, and the colors just make it easier. Also, there's things like the indentions. You don't like if you go from here to down here, it's going to automatically indent that for you until you decide not to anymore. That's a great feature, and it's really simple, simple featured. And there's things like you can click run and go into like launch in a certain browser, and I just think it's great. If you're using Ubuntu, you can use Bluefish Editor, and it does kind of the same thing. It's a little more choppy, and there's things like it does predictive tags. I don't particularly like that. I prefer to write my tags out myself. However, if that's something you would like to do, Bluefish Editor is going to be great for that. But that's a Linux. It's a Linux program, and I don't think you can get Notepad++ unless you're running it through Wine. And that's something else. I'll probably try to throw some Linux tutorials on my website. But if you're using Linux, chances are you probably know what you're doing. What else? Let's see. Oh, Google Chrome. I think I went over that already. Basically, it's going to be the most update version. It's what we're going to be using. It's just going to be easier to follow along because there's going to be workarounds for things that don't work in other browsers that'll make them work. However, starting out, we're just going to use Google Chrome. And if you can use other browsers, but the thing is, it's probably not going to look right. I know when I was learning HTML5, I was using Firefox, and Google Chrome was being used in the tutorial, and things weren't looking right. And I was like, what the heck? And they told me to use Google Chrome, and I didn't listen. And I finally downloaded it, looked at the same page, and it was perfect. It was right. I did nothing wrong except for I was stubborn. I didn't want to use a different browser. So if you would use Google Chrome, it would help you out a lot in following along with my tutorials. What else? Okay. And like I said, this is going to be a series of tutorials. You're not going to learn this all in one video. So just stick with it, and over time, it'll become second nature to you to be able to sit down and just bust out a website. And it'll probably be a pretty basic website. There's a lot of, and I'm going to go over everything, but you're probably not going to pick it up all at once. You might have to refer back and stuff. So just be patient with yourself, and just it's hard. They have college classes that they go over it for a whole semester, 2 semesters, just to learn this stuff. And so if you can do it yourself, then you're ahead of the game. Next video, we're going to go over HTML basic structuring, which is real simple, easy to do. But it kicks off the website. It's what you need to basically build your website. It's the most simple. So if you want to join me over the next video, we'll get started.